Hello everybody, we're back once again. So we've just spoken to Rebecca temporarily as we got off of the laptop. See if she has anything more to say.
Was it weird seeing Cross?
What do you mean?
It's different for you. You don't know about what happened, I guess. For a long time, he was important to us. He was a different person.
Sean said he was a sleeper agent, like Lucy.
It was different. She made a choice, but Cross, if you read the files, Abstergo just... They did terrible things to him.
Rebecca?
You're lucky. We all are. We have people who care about us, who look out for us. He was all alone, and the people he thought he could trust, they used him.
Did you know him?
No, but I knew Hannah.
Who's that?
She tried to help him. She trusted him. But there was a raid about a year ago. She stayed behind so the others could escape. Tried to reason with him to see if she could fix things.
Well, what happened?
What do you think happened? He killed her. That's what he does. That's all he knows how to do. Sometimes it seems like that's all any of us know how to do.
Rebecca.
I just want to be alone right now.
Okay, bit of context for those that don't know. So the previous video, just before its end, we met up with a man named Daniel Cross. Daniel Cross is an infamous character in the Assassin's Creed story. His ancestry goes back to Nikolai Ovolov, and the Olovov family were members of the Assassin Order in Russia. They did come into contact with Pieces of Eden, similar to, let's say, Desmond's heritage. But eventually they left Russia to seek a new life, which eventually would lead Daniel Cross to be somewhere in the States. Now, Daniel apparently was taken either... It's a bit varied on what I think is the truth on it, but he was definitely taken probably at the time of his birth or slightly after. He was heavily put into the Animus at a very young age. Like, they constantly put him through, and he was Abstergo's test subject number 4. And let's just say they decided to do something which all Templars always hope to dream for whenever they corner or get close to an idea of killing the Assassin Order in whatever time period. So Daniel ends up growing up eventually away from Abstergo Industries. They more or less just chuck him out, and he's adopted by a different family. They monitor him like Abstergo would do with any other person, and they slowly make sure that he kind of does what he's supposed to, I guess. He doesn't really have a good childhood. He always gets into trouble, gets into fights, and seems to have like a load of mental problems. This is due to the bleeding effect, but obviously all doctors are, well, the ones that he would see are all Abstergo agents, and they'll make sure that they give him the right medication to keep him somewhat in control. And then at one point he is found, I'm not sure if it's right or not, but I think they kind of stop him from having the medication because they want to implement their plan, which is to kill the mentor of the assassins in the present day. Eventually he is found by the assassins, and they do point out that, you know what, you should join us, you should help and everything else. Danny doesn't want to, and then eventually he does. He kind of is like, I'm not saying what Desmond's like now, but he's more infatuated with the assassins, and he's more wanting to learn what they're like. And he travels around the world. He meets every single bureau leader. He speaks to every master assassin that's, you know, high rank. Like, say, William Mars, for example, he is technically a master assassin level, but I think for William, he's a mentor now at this stage. Anyway, Daniel travels all over the world. He meets different assassins in their different groups, and eventually he does find the modern-day mentor of the Brotherhood. And Daniel's sleeper cell program kicks in, and he kills the mentor. He flees the mentor's compound, knowing that if he is caught by the bodyguards that protect that mentor, no matter what he would do or say, they wouldn't believe him, they'd probably execute him. And as if unknowingly, he returns back to the Abstergo facility that he was at when he was a child. He speaks to a couple of people there at Abstergo. They place him inside the Animus, and he's actually quite happy to go in the machine. And everything's let out. Every bit and piece of information, every assassin compound, every cell, every bureau, any passwords used, everything. It's all handed over, and Abstergo sent their extermination team over all over the world, and every assassin cell more or less is killed. So by the time we get to Desmond's story in AC1, and we hear that the assassins are making a raid attempt on the facility that he was in, which is in Rome, and Desmond was told, well, that's it, that's the last one of your kind, it's kind of like, well, shit, there isn't anyone left, except for the rare few. And with Daniel being the way how he is now, he's very broken. He's not really stable, and he can break under any circumstances. And with Hannah in question, she liked Daniel. She actually cared about him, and the case of what Rebecca says here about what she wanted to do to help him, if memory serves, he listened to her for a while, feigning as if like he was actually considering what she said, and then he pointed a gun at her head and blew her brains out. I believe.
Son, I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have lashed out like that. You have to understand, I've never been very good at this. Never mind that we live rather extraordinary lives.
Yeah, I kinda liked my ordinary one.
You can't escape who you are, Desmond.
So I've noticed.
Look, it's silly for us to go back and forth like this. I admit, I did a shitty job raising you. I apologize, I'm sorry. But it's important you understand it didn't come from a bad place. You're my son. I love you. I guess I was so busy trying to make sure nothing bad happened, I didn't consider the consequences. Truce.
I can't believe it's taken me so long to ask, but... how's Mom? She's not...
No. Your mother is fine. We decided it was safer if we split up for this job.
Always assuming the worst.
For good reason.
Can I at least say hi to her?
I'm sorry, it's too risky. Maybe when we're done.
Right. When we're done.
Oh man, it's terrible, isn't it?
Have we ever tried to make peace with the Templars?
Throughout our history, there have been moments. Several, in fact. But... it's impossible. There are existential differences, insurmountable. If there were to be unity, it wouldn't be a truce so much as a submission.
But knowing what's about to happen, wouldn't it make sense to try and talk to Vidic? Come to an arrangement, even if it's only temporary?
We'd all be so busy watching our backs, nothing would get accomplished. Imagine that. We're more productive at war.
Well, have we ever tried sending in someone? Doing to them what they did to us with Lucy? Or Cross?
We have, and it's never worked. We've sent people who were either too weak and found themselves turned, or too strong and were unable to carry out the charade.
I just feel like we all want the same thing.
We use the same words, but that's all they are, words. In the end, it all comes down to freedom. We seek it, they detest it. And so there's never an end to the fight. Not until one side is completely gone.
Is that even possible?
Probably not. Our two groups have existed in one form or another since, well, since forever. but things can be better than they are. And that's something.
Did you look for me, Dad? When I was gone?
Every day.
Come on.
I mean it. Every night I'd look, searching for your name or variations of it, hoping you'd slip up. Abstergo only found you first because they had better access. A few more days and it would have been me.
Well, I'm here now.
And I'm glad.
You know, it makes me wonder this question now. If somehow William managed to get to Desmond, let's say, the day before Abstergo did, we technically may not have the story that we're having now. I mean, granted, there'd be a reason for Desmond to go into his ancestry. There'll probably be a reason that he would study as Altair first, then Ezio. But then everything would still be out of kilter. We probably may never seek this temple. We may end up going elsewhere just to even get the apple first, which we would have to. Because there'd be no way that William would entrust anybody else except himself and potentially Desmond into retrieving the artifact. And even still, say somehow Lucy came into the picture, William would be questioning it every single solitary second. Because as far as he would be concerned, he knew that Lucy was happy-ish to come back, but I'd reckon even in the back of his mind, he must have suspected that there was something wrong.
Do you think Lucy regretted what she was doing?
I used to think I knew her well, but clearly that wasn't the case. So I really can't give you an honest answer.
She seemed so sincere, though. Like she really wanted to make a difference.
Yes, well, when I first met him, I thought the same thing about Cross.
It just keeps happening over and over again.
What does?
Everything.
Don't get weird on me, Desmond.
No, it's fine. I'm fine. Don't worry.
All right, then. You should think about getting back in the Animus. We've got to find that key. We should probably get back to Connor.
Oh, excuse me.
Ah, Desmond, there you are. Can I ask a favor?
Maybe.
When this is all over, I'd like to try turning the dial back on the Animus. Like, all the way back. To the time of the first civilization.
You think it would work?
There was no real loss of fidelity when you visited Altair. Then again...
Oh, hold on.
Ah, Desmond, there you are. Can I ask a favor?
Maybe.
When this is all over, I'd like to try turning the dial back on the Animus. Like, all the way back. To the time of the first civilization.
You think it would work?
There was no real loss of fidelity when you visited Altair. Then again, that was about 1,000 years ago, and I'm looking at going back at least 70,000 more.
Sure, I'd be up for it. Be interesting to see what things were like back then.
Excellent. I think it would prove most enlightening.
There's a problem for that, though. When Abstergo tried to do the same thing with Subject 16, sorry, Clay, they were able to get something, but a majority of it was all scrambled because you're going back so far down, let's say, the DNA sequence to, well, whoever it is that Desmond would have an ancestral tie to, and it'll be like looking through a very muddy water of all these different ancestors just clouding the vision. You can only go back so far, and even if, let's just say, Desmond managed to have access to, I don't know, a particular relative, and even let's just say you got that person's DNA and went from their point of view, you'd have to go back quite far.
So this is how it started.
What are you up to?
Just brushing up on my American history. I say history. They certainly teach you strange things in the States.
Like what?
Well, for all the talk of this being a revolutionary war, it was a civil one. Well, not that kind of civil. I mean, there was no America versus Britain. It was Brit on Brit action. And you can clearly see how the whole thing got started. One war gave birth to the other.
You mean the 7 Years' War?
Exactly. Seems the Crown overspent in its attempt to keep the French out, wound up with a great deal of debt. Believing that the colonists should help to shoulder the burden, new taxes were created. It was a reasonable request, even if Parliament was rather, well, undiplomatic about it.
Well, it's not really fair to tax people for a war they didn't want any part of.
What? Didn't want any part of? Did you not notice George Washington with Edward Braddock? He was right there in the middle of it. So here you have the Crown spending who knows how much money to secure a place for the colonists to thrive, and then, when they ask for a little bit of help... Right, look, think of it this way. King George and the colonists, they all go out to dinner, right? And when the bill comes, George asks for them to kick in and pay their share. Fair enough. Now keep in mind, he's been taking them out to dinner gratis for decades now. But the colonists, oh no, they insist they only had a glass of water and a side salad. Never mind the table's full of half-eaten food and empty bottles of wine. Now when the king points this out, what do the colonists do? Oh, they flip the table over and they storm out the restaurant. Probably intending to return later and burn it down.
You left out the part where the king pointed a gun at the colonists and asked them to cover dinner for everyone in the restaurant.
Right, yeah, interesting take. If he pulled out a gun, and I'm not sure he did, it would only have been after the 100th failed attempt at getting them to pay their fair share.
But how do you define someone's fair share?
Oh, well, with a war, apparently.
I have to be honest here, I have to stand with Sean.
I wonder how many other places like this exist.
Oh.
There are dozens of them, all over the world.
And somehow no one's ever found one before us.
I don't think that's true.
Oh?
When I was at Abstergo, Vidic talked about silencing discoveries made by non-Templars. And I'm sure Abstergo has dug up plenty.
The things they must know.
Regretting throwing in with us?
No. Just looking forward to when we can finally trounce those bastards so I can dive into their archives. Oh, I think I found a lead on another power source.
Alright, well before we jump into the Animus, Juno is apparently up at our console up there, so we should see what she's got going on. And we still have that power source that we got from New York, so we should see if it has a place somewhere. Is there anything down here? No. Interesting. You know what, this was the whole thing at the time, back in, well, funnily enough, 2012. Every fan of of Assassin's Creed was hoping and begging and pleading to be more inside of a first Civ temple, or tomb. And in this case, where we literally have a tomb to explore, granted it's big, but it's not expansive, it's something entirely.
In the beginning, when we thought we could be saved, we sought to face the sun's wrath and contain it. 4 towers would be built to pull her fury into this place and dispel it. But even with all we knew, with all we had, it would take too long. 1,000 years we could labor and still the work would not be done. The first tower was never completed. The project abandoned. We moved on. But while we labored on other endeavors, a few returned. They thought to automate the process. Metal might finish what flesh could not.
Interesting. So with these little tidbits of information, towers were the first option. Towers to drag in the power of the sun and dispel it across. Now, in theory this would work. If they were able to harness the energy that the sun gave out, and they could use it for other things, like create a force field perhaps to shield the world. So use the sun against itself in a way. But it would have taken too long. You've got to think of it in this sense. These guys were busy having a war amongst humanity. The very first people to realise that they were built and made by these first civs as slave labour. So by the time, let's say, these lot realised the hell what's going on, it was kind of already too late. Even if they started the production way ahead, like way in advance, it was too late for them. They couldn't have stopped it even if they tried. So the ones that probably left it to automate, I have to wonder, would this tomb, would this temple perhaps maybe be one of those places, considering some of the stuff here might be similar to the tower? Even still to this day, I've got no clue. And there isn't anything... Oh.
If we could not meet the sun's cruel embrace, perhaps we might rebuke it. Already we could generate fields to protect us in times of strife. But these were small and simple things. To replicate them on a scale the size of a world. We lack the energy to make it so. Half the world, they said then. It is better than none at all. We tried. Again, we failed. A quarter, they asked. Even this we could not do. A sixth, an eighth, a tenth, they cried. The answer was still the same. Perhaps in time a city might be spared. But it was time we did not have. So we moved on.
So this is, again, considering this, Juno herself has got no love for us as humans. She doesn't like us. She really detests us. But she cares about her people. And judging from the emotion, and this is what I gather from her conversations here at least, the people that she's talking to, the ones that are demanding, okay, cover the world. We don't have the energy. Half of it then. It's better than nothing. No. A quarter? No. A sixth, a seventh, an eighth, a tenth. No matter whatever the number that you could think of trying to protect any segment of the planet, it just wasn't doable. And even for a small city, it just no. So for all these advancements in technology, for all the greatness it is, if you don't have the time, nothing can be done. And that's the shocking part of it. But here's the thing, we were invited here by Tinia and Minerva. So why the fuck is she here?
Only one way to find out.
Still invincible. Alright, ladies and gents, we'll call the video for here for now, and the next time that you see me will be in the Animus.